Anyway, it's nice to see everyone. And I was thinking, there are lots of events we do at St. Mary's, but sometimes we're not always together as a community. And this event does that. It brings all aspects of our campus together. And so I'm thrilled to be here because all of you are here, and the topic today is fantastic. So before I get to those remarks, I know we recognize the folks that put this together, but I'd like to just take one more minute if we could. And I would ask everyone who's worked on this symposium, if you're able to please stand and let us recognize you and thank you for your good work to put this together. Please. Upstairs, too. Upstairs. I talk a lot, well, maybe not as much as I should, about sort of one team. We're all St. Mary's, and we've been through some challenging times. You much more than me. I'm sort of the new guy. But I know that those challenging times have happened and have been part of the story that we continue to write about St. Mary's College. And one of the things that really struck me as I was hobbling over here today, I have to tell you, I broke a toe Monday. And so I'm fine. But if you see me sort of walking like Fred Sanford, well, probably not have that reference. You have to be a certain age. If you just see me hobbling along, it's because this toe is driving me crazy. But it'll be fine. But anyway, as I was walking somewhat over here, I just couldn't get past the idea of what a great opportunity to bring faculty, staff, people from all across campus together to talk about an emerging issue. When I saw that AI was going to be featured, it took me to some really interesting things that I thought about. I think there's 3 sessions around the topic of artificial intelligence. And of course, it's in our lives every day, right? I mean, I'm always amazed at how this little phone of mine seems to know that I'm looking up the latest on the 49ers, and it immediately sends me information about how I could buy a 49ers shirt if I wanted to or something. So AI's with us and has been for some time. But as I was thinking about it, it took me back to just a couple of moments that happened with me. Really, I guess it was August 2023. So it was a little over a year ago, former institution. We were talking a lot about artificial intelligence and what role AI would play in the classroom and across the campus. And I was part of that discussion where people seemed very reluctant to embrace or think about AI. I then, maybe a day or two later, I went to a faculty meeting. I used to teach graduate students, and I was amazed at how the School of Education was viewing this entirely different as it related to AI from the administrative discussions that I had just been in a few days earlier. And at that meeting, and I was sitting back, I was letting the full-time tenure track folks talk much more about this than I was sort of just in the crowd thinking about my one class that was about to start that I needed to teach. But the conversation drifted to artificial intelligence as just one more reference point that students could use. And as long as students were citing how they had utilized AI in their papers, projects, et cetera, that was just fine and would be very much accepted in a classroom. And it was just a moment of, over the course of a week, even less, a few days, seeing such a contrast between very strong resistance, I'm not sure we want to get into this, to being in a faculty meeting where, yes, this should help contribute to how people learn, and we should make sure that they reference it. It's an interesting discussion, and at the time it was happening, I don't know about you, but I wanted to consult someone from a different generation. So I asked my daughter. My daughter is a scientist and a researcher full-time. She's doing her PhD program at a different school, and she works 30 hours in a lab every day, 12 months a year, and loves being in her lab. And what was fascinating was to hear her perspective on how she could generate, she's an organic geochemist, so she could generate data from millions of years in no time at all. And she still had to analyze it, but the data collection, the initial sorting of the data, all those things that could be done using AI, it was fascinating to me to hear how this could be practically applied in labs and in research, and the way she was utilizing the information. She might as well told me she was preparing for a mission to Mars, right? It was so foreign to me. And yet, I suspect we have those very same debates here on our campus. And people from different disciplines probably take different perspectives on how AI can be beneficial. All that's to say, I think you've got a great day ahead of you. And when I think about our graduates at St. Mary's, so here's a little editorializing maybe. And I think about the role of AI in our society. I think about it particularly at some of those businesses across the bay in the Silicon Valley. And I become very convinced that St. Mary's graduates who are creative, think logically, and live ethically need to be part of those discussions, need to be part of the thinking of how this technology, among others, impacts us every day in our lives. And this discussion today, I imagine, will help further that. And so I wish you all the best over the course of the day. Tragically, I cannot stay for all of the great discussions that you're about to have, but I look forward to hearing about what occurred today. Let me close by simply saying thank you for the work that you do. There's one thing I've learned in 70 days at St. Mary's. It's that we ask an awful lot of our people. We ask in some ways really more than what might even be reasonable. And yet, our dedicated team across St. Mary's, in whatever area people are working, they continue to strive and meet those expectations and to create a great student experience inside and outside the classroom. And I find that to be very admirable. And when I'm in front of a group, I just want to recognize that, call that out, and say thank you. Thank you for your dedication to the thousands of students that are here that benefit from your work, and for all the students who have come before that have been impacted and touched in a very positive way by this institution. So if no one else says it to you today or this week, I want to be loud and clear to say thank you for the contributions that you make. Thank you for the good work that you do. And I wish you the very best over the course of this symposium, and the exchange of ideas and dialogue and the discussion that will happen here will only enrich our students' lives as they go forward, and it will improve St. Mary's. So thank you all very much, and I hope you have a great symposium, and I'm off to my next thing, but have a great day of meetings, and I really want to thank you for participating and contributing. Take good care, and go Gales!
Thank you very much, President Thompson. My name is Margot. I'm in the library, and I'm one of the organizers for our event today and tomorrow. So I would like to welcome our panel. We're going to be hearing on the topic of learning from each other and breaking silos. And I want to appreciate James Johnson, our Chief Information Officer, Marc Loupé, our Interim VP for Finance Administration, Laura Lyndon, our Associate VP and Dean of Students, and our moderator for this panel will be Corey Cook, our Executive Vice President and Provost. Thank you.
As noted, the panel's purpose is to talk about how we learn from each other and break silos. So we're going to ask each of our panelists to start by talking about some of the exciting things that are happening in their areas and briefly introduce to us what they're working on right now. So maybe Marc, start with you.
Just good, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here. In terms of what's going on in the finance administration area, I want to give context. As you may know, there are 3 pillars that we all subscribe to. One is the student experience, one is the employee experience, and ensuring that we're complying with all key issues that we have to comply to within our university. Well, I don't even know if you can see this, but this is what I would call a spaghetti chart. And that means that we are going to convert to a new system that takes care of employees in terms of payroll and benefits. And it's a long-term project. Where's Dean? Dean, we're going to go live come what, April 1? Say yes. Say yes. Say yes, Dean. And in the spirit of breaking down silos, which is the theme today, it is a group effort with the HR organization, the IT organization, and the payroll organization. It's a very huge project. And we meet once a week on a core team and once a week as a development team. And so I'm very excited because we're going to take that spaghetti chart to make it easy for people to engage at the staff level, the faculty level, and student level too. So I'm very excited about that. And another one we're doing is soon another collaborative effort with the Employee Benefit Advisory Group in terms of the new enrollment. So we looked at the benefits for staff and faculty. And that's a very huge rollout because we had to go outside and look at our benefits and reassess them. But another collaborative effort because we get input from the Employee Benefits Advisory Council. That's it. Okay.
Hello. Testing. Yeah, so we work on everything. So, so from a student experience, we are, Ed Tech is working closely with faculty, academic affairs, with the librarians. Can you guys hear me? Okay. No? Sorry about that. I'll try. Okay. There we go. Okay. So that's from a student experience standpoint. And I think from an initiative, I just recently sat with the Associated Students. And so bridging that gap from the student feedback to have that truly reflected in how we serve our students. And so that's an initiative of mine. From the faculty and staff experience, we are working on systems. Pre-pandemic, we had a lot of manual systems in place. A lot of us are, I don't want to say victims of Excel spreadsheets, but a lot of our processes are in Excel sheets, Excel tabs. And so now with new employees coming in and they look at these spreadsheets like, okay, how am I supposed to, do my job with this person's spreadsheet? And, each spreadsheet is its own fingerprint, right? So we are trying to standardize our system, come with a more systems thinking. That way there's a standard, there's a consistent delivery of service. So we're working on that. So the different areas you guys are probably see Adriana and Haley a lot more because we're really pushing projects, getting organized so leadership can actually understand those projects at a high level, even though a lot of you guys are doing the work on the front lines, but it has to be communicated that way. The vision and strategy can be communicated across departments. And then from compliance, MFA all day. Thank you again for your participation in the multi-factor authentication, integration. We've had some issues with phishing emails and compromised accounts. And so this also speaks to the student experience because we've had some students fall victim to faculty emails promoting selling of goods and things like that. And students have kind of been left out, out of fun. So that being said, we are working on a lot of things, but a lot of it is, you guys are already there because it's part of your project. So that's IT.
Thanks, James. I'd love to hear that about incorporating the student feedback and voice. So again, Laura Lyndon, AVP Team of Students, use she, her pronouns, and happy to be here and bring good wishes from Jim Shudo, our VP, who is taking some very much deserved time off. So last year was kind of a year of transition and reorganization in the Division of Student Life, which has kind of set us up to do some of the great things that we're doing this year. And they're kind of focused in a couple different areas. One is about student wellness and belonging. We did a lot of intentional work last year of what does wellness really mean? What does that term mean? How are wellness and belonging interconnected? So we've really tried to amp up our wellness offerings with a comprehensive WellGale program over the course of the year with our implementation of Timely Care, which is a virtual platform where students can augment what they're getting in person and have flexibility to access resources when the other offices are closed. And we've reorganized some areas so that the Intercultural Center and the Center for Women and Gender Equity are now in the same division under my umbrella with the wellness area. So really thinking intentionally about how those two things can't really be separate. Student sense of belonging and their well-being. So a lot of attention there. We've been also thinking about, now we're turning our attention in terms of revisioning to kind of thinking about our student onboarding experience. We do a lot of great things with orientation week of Welcome, but how do we bring that into the new era of what students are needing and kind of really rethink how we bring the rest of the campus into that as well. And looking at, with a number of folks on campus, how we engage parents and families from a lot of different perspectives. An increased focus on the campus experience and student leadership development. That's something that I have heard, at least, was very robust in the past, and sort of over COVID and other changes kind of got dispersed, and we're really trying to bring that back and bring in campus partners on that as well. And to echo what James said, increased representation. Really heard the call from student activists last spring. Don't make decisions about students without students at the table. So we've been really intentional about bringing more students into committees, into search committees, into thinking about processes, and so that we can really hear from them. What is it that you are looking for? Obviously, there are some things we can't just say, do the way a student wants us to do it, but how do we understand how they're experiencing the things that we're doing? A couple other exciting things. We're celebrating the 20th year of the Intercultural Center and the 25th year of the Center for Women and Gender Equity. So we're looking to be incorporating the rest of the community in those celebrations. Yeah, very exciting. Really good work that's been happening. We worked in those areas for a long time. And that is connected to our ongoing commitment to DEIB work, staff development, and training. And then lastly, I just have to say we're so excited. I know it's been a big transition. Some of the folks are in the room, but we're very excited about the integration of SDS and career services into the Division of Student Life. It just opens up a whole other level of collaboration and kind of thinking about the intersection of students' life inside and outside the classroom and beyond SMC. So those are some of the things that we are focusing on this year.
Thank you. So I did want to briefly apologize that I'm breaking the first rule of the moderator, which is I have my phone on. So the exciting thing in our area is that the first hearing of the California Board of Registered Nursing is today. And so we have a team of nursing faculty who are watching the hearing online in Brother Joe West. So if the phone rings and I throw the microphone in Bakiko, you'll know why. So I apologize. I know it's incredibly rude, but I'm breaking that rule. Okay, second question. We're seeing a national trend on declining enrollment, and the population of the college age group itself is also declining in the United States. If I could add a little editorial comment, that's true. It's also uneven across the country, and it's even uneven among demographic groupings, and the demand for higher education in the United States is projected to increase despite the decline of traditional college age students. The demand for what we do as an institution is actually increasing. Holding that aside, we're also seeing that there are more and more institutions that face financial challenges. How do we prepare ourselves to be proactive rather than reactive? And can you share some of the highlights of what each of your areas are embarking on? Do I want to say more? Is that good? Mark?
Sure. You can hear me, right? Good. Wow, I thought long and hard about this question since I'm in the finance administration area. The first thought is whenever you have this sea change going on around the country, all related to COVID-19, frankly, that you have to stay true to your purpose and mission. Many organizations, academic and corporate America, sometimes make a pivot to adversely affect the actual purpose of an organization. So I would say we keep that up front. So what have we done? First of all, again, with the theme here today of breaking down cycles, I've learned a lot by talking to my peers. Corey's done an excellent job in your office in terms of understanding the academic landscape. But one thing that we've done is look with Roger the next 3 years. So rather than being reactive, what we do in fiscal year 2024, 2025, what about 2027 and beyond? Going back to what Corey said, the landscape will change. So what do we do in the interim to get through the trough? So we have assessed each area, best practices, and what can we do to close those gaps for the long term and not jeopardize our mission and purpose, which is not easy to do because you can go off center quite quickly. And Corey does a very good job of keeping us centered in a good way. I'm saying that very positive. So one thing I like to, on the finance side, we have about 4 major areas of cash inflow and outflow. It is about the money. They keep the lights on, okay? So one area we look at is student fees. Going back to having a collaborative effort, the Office of Enrollment has done a very good job of looking at what we do today and what we need to do tomorrow, working very closely with Corey's group too. So even though enrollment has dipped, if you will, we do see it getting, I would call it altitude in the near future. But we have to make actions, take action now. So in addition to looking at the student enrollment, in addition to looking at the fee structure and financial aid, we also have another source, our donors. You see Roger, he's Mr. Instagram right now, right? He's out there going around the state, looking at other sources of donors. Those donors fit into 2 major categories. Those that said, I'll give money to you to run a student program. I may give you money for establishing a new facility. I may give you money for an academic program. That's a source that we call restricted. So we need to keep track of those funds coming from those donors. Then there's our donors that we want to make sure to keep your lights on. And we're not going to have any restrictions because we have faith that you're going to be good fiduciaries with how we run the university. That's very important to us. And then what has been done, about last year this time, we restructured our debt. So very important because we had debt in the organization that we said, can we restructure it? And it's public information. My predecessor did a very good job and just raised a mere $110 million. That's not insignificant, all right? And make sure that we have some runway so for the future. That's very important. And then lastly is going back to benchmarking. We looked at our cost structure, the IT cost structure, the finance cost structure. Corey's done a good job of looking at student-faculty ratios. So that's all goes into how to contain and how to reduce in the short term. And so I say that is being proactive, again, not reactive to the short term, but talking about the long-term viability for this college.
From an IT perspective, we're always seen as support. And so in that role as support, we see everything. So we work with everybody in the room. And so in order to help with like this enrollment situation, enrollment quickness, a lot of it speaks to the student experience and how, again, our systems, onboard, offboard, the actual experience once you're on campus. So looking at, how we work together and from an IT perspective, my goal has been having my team be more vocal on what they see because they're part of all these meetings, but because we're in a support role, we don't typically try to lead it. However, we want to empower the different business owners across the campus with the information to understand that, this HR process will impact this financial aid process, or this process over here will impact this. So it's like really understanding the spider web of how these different transactions work, because that will translate to the student experience. That has translated to our faculty and staff experience. On another note, on being vocal in a support role is actually asking the question, what is our North Star? And that goes from an institutional standpoint, but at the same time from your department, what is your North Star? And how does it align with the big North Star, right? And so I'll borrow a coin term in my area. the good idea fairies. So there's always a time where the good idea fairies come out and you start spinning your wheels on all these great ideas, but doesn't move the North Star forward, right? And so as an IT person, we're always getting all the good idea fairies, but then we're expected to take these ideas, and the next thing you know, those ideas turn into little puppies, and these puppies, we become the puppy collectors because you just wanted to drop them at the door. And so we're really trying to change the culture with IT, how the different departments see IT, but really empowering the different divisions to understand what's their North Star and how to move it forward, especially in a now tech-heavy era, where even if tech is not what you lead with, it's going to be the backbone of how to get you to that end product. So that's from a staff in IT part. Now in the classroom, how does that bridge in the classroom? What's the North Star? Our products 5, 10 years ago, pre-COVID, we always produced, we really pride ourselves on the face-to-face, right? What is the rebrand? If there needs to be a rebrand, but let's just have that conversation, right? So from a technology standpoint, from an AI standpoint, what is the rebrand? That it doesn't have to be face-to-face or technology. It's how can this technology enhance the face-to-face? How can we enhance and get these students prepared for the industry for today? And so this is a lot of what we're working on. So backbone, so IT, backbone and core is getting our systems up and going and getting you guys more efficient so you can focus on the things that you need to focus on. On the other end, it's the ed tech piece and enhancing this experience in the classroom so the product that we are delivering on is consistent and also attractive to this new type of student.
So for me, the answer to this question is really about being proactive about understanding the changing needs of incoming and our current students, and ensuring that our programs and services are meeting those needs. So the world has changed, right? To everything everyone has said. The world has changed, and that means taking a good look at maybe things we've done in the past that have been really successful, and that alumni say, this was the best part of my St. Mary's experience. Maybe it doesn't resonate with current students. So really being able, and I think what Marc said about mission and purpose is really important, and staying true to that, and also being willing to look at the ways in which we have this mission and values of the institution, and we still fall short in some ways. And being able to take a good look at that, and what are the ways in which maybe our students don't experience the campus the way that some students don't experience the campus the way we hope that they would, and the way that we wish for them to, and being willing to take a look at that and be kind of brave about, okay, maybe we have to change some things up, because that is what's going to keep students here, that we're listening to them and that we're hearing the ways that they aren't having the experience that we want, and we're willing to take a look at that and change what we're doing. So that's includes paying attention to data and looking at what voices student data is telling us about their experience, and recognize where we don't have the data. Many of you have heard that a group of us went on this retreat, a scholar retreat, to talk about being an HSI and Latinx serving this, and one of the things that came out of that is we just don't have the data to know what we need to learn from students and what we need to do to really meet the needs of that particular population. And that's true across the board, I think. So just being really aware that we need to have more information and not go on our assumptions about what students need. Being nimble and creative, especially now, about collaborating. That's a big theme for this conference, is how do we collaborate, use limited resources, not be duplicating efforts, and really being intentional about what we're doing to support students in the interest of them persisting, and that meaning we're bringing in more students who are seeing what a positive experience. I think getting out in front of budget limitations, and that's something I would give a big shout out to our VP. A lot of transparency and a lot of collaborative conversation about, okay, we're going to need to make cuts. How are we going to do that? Let's put it all on the table. Let's think as a group about what we really need to do to support students effectively. And maybe that means some of us give some things up so that we can figure out other ways to support students. So just really getting out in front and being proactive about decision-making around budget limitations. And that also includes being proactive and transparent with students about how we're using their money. many of you know, there was an enhancement fee that was established before I came, I think it was last year, which uses student fees to fund programs. We require assessment of those programs, we require proposals that need to be approved, and then there's a whole website that tells students, this is what this money was used for. This percentage went to X, this percentage went to X, this is the assessment of whether these programs are effective. I think that really matters to students, knowing what they're spending a lot of money. And so what are we doing with their money? And I think that gives them a sense of trust in the institution moving forward.
Thank you. The third question, in light of breaking silos, can you speak about how decisions are made in your respective areas and how these decisions are shared with other functions that may be impacted? And we're asking for any advice you have on best practices, things to avoid.
So I start. I assume everyone has at least a phone or a piece of paper and pen. There's an acronym I like you to write down. R, A, C, I. What is that? Who's responsible? Who can authorize? Who you need to concur with? And who needs to be informed? Now, let's make that real. So we do in our organization. She's laughing at me already. It's Christine Gilmore. She helps me in our organization and this campus process contracts all the way to the point of being a vendor. There are a series of activities that need to go on. And I've learned a lot in that process because of breaking down silos. All right? How do I engage with other people? So if you happen to be one in this audience that has to get something bought, you go through that process. And so who's the vendor? Contract terms, payment terms, who owns the relationship, all the way to the point of delivery service by that vendor. That's what we use right now. Even onboarding in the HR area, onboarding as a new employee, there's a process. Do you get a computer? Do you not get a computer? What type of computer do you get? So who makes that decision? Do I get a Dell or do I get a Mac? So it sounds simple, but there are a lot of things that go on. I want to hire an employee today. Today? Do you know what it takes to get that person up and running and productive today? There are things, that activities that precede up to the point of the offer letter. I won't go through all nauseam, but the point is, what do we use? We need to know who is part of that value chain, and we use that construct to inform us, because many of us sometimes don't know who's downstream or who's upstream, and it just allows us to have some type of model to get us to engage one another. That's what we do.
I wish we were that organized. No, just kidding. But ours is by committee. Ours is by committee. A lot of it internally, we come together. Adriana keeps us organized with projects, and then we come and we prioritize those projects. We have a managers meeting, and those meetings are never like knock down, drag them out, but a lot of times they tell me what to do, you know? So a lot of breaking down silos is like, because we span across the campus, all those projects come together and we start picking them apart. And we can get passionate in some of those meetings on where to start, how to engage the VP of that area, or how to communicate that. And to Mark's point, as far as the RACI chart, we are starting to get more and more involved in RACI charts because, again, we need to have standard operating procedures as we engage on different projects. And so I would say, if I were just to sum it up internally, how we deal with silos is transparency, to be able to have honest questions. I'm looking at the librarians because they keep me honest. I think you have to have those relationships where it's like, hey, James, I get it, but no, okay? Like, can we at least set up a meeting and at least talk about this issue? And so my mom used to always have a phrase, it says, blame it on my mind, not my heart. So even if something comes off a certain way, just understand that your colleagues are trying to get the best out of the situation, and it's not personal. So again, it's just really being able to have those transparent conversations at every level because you're trying to figure out the best issue. And so I think, again, for me, it's always been transparency. Internally, we can have transparent conversations. Externally, that transparent conversation also happens. But then again, when it comes to standardizing a level of service or standardizing a level of quality, that's where the RACI comes into play, the SOPs come into play. And I think that's a really good start at chipping away at silos, because then you see and understand the process. And so it's not surprising every time you have these conversations. If there's a point of understanding and it's very consistent. So.
Yeah, I just really love the emphasis on relationships. To me, that's one of the most important things about breaking down silos. I would say within the Division of Student Life, we have a lot of channels for transparency and communication. We have a regular meeting of the leadership team. We have a regular meeting of all of the directors of areas, and then we have a regular meeting of the entire division. And all of those happen at least once a month, so that there is really good back and forth. And the idea is that Jim and I, as leaders of the division, are sharing information through, and that people are bringing information back up. We have folks who are engaging with the campus in all different ways. We have our amazing campus safety staff who are out there engaging in different ways. We have our residential staff. So we have a lot of opportunity to gather information and hear what's happening and incorporate that. But that requires a back and forth flow of information, not just having meetings where we say, this is what's happening, but what's happening for you? What are you seeing? How do we need to respond to that? And that also means all those folks are in committees, work very closely with other areas of campus. And so we get opportunities to have a voice and also to gather information about what's going on. So I think there's a lot of emphasis. We've done some really intentional work on collaboration. We had a whole division meeting where we did an exercise about what does collaboration actually mean? It doesn't mean, I'm doing this program, would you like to co-sponsor? It means, what's the need that we need to address, and how do we work collaboratively to bring everybody's strengths and perspectives to the table to meet this need? And I think that's a really important perspective for us to be taking. And so for that, I would just add my own personal suggestion about how we think about how our work impacts other areas. Just thinking it through when you're talking about a project or initiative. Okay, we have this great idea that we're going to implement. Okay, what's going to happen when who's going to be impacted? Whose work is going to be affected by this? Does this mean we're putting an extra workload on someone outside of our division that we don't even understand is going to happen? And bring those people into the conversation. Always have found over the course of my career that pre-work and getting advanced buy-in is going to make anything much more successful, because you've already talked with the people who are going to be impacted by your decision. So that's my key piece of advice there.
All right, so Makiko said I could weigh in, so I'm going to weigh in on this. So we had all faculty in this room, and one of the things that I try to remind folks is that higher education was designed to perpetuate power inequality and privilege. That's what it was designed to do. Now, we inherited the tradition of John Baptist de La Salle, who didn't buy into that framework, right? Which was what the revolutionary idea from the Lasallian family is, that that's not what higher education is for, but that's what our institutions were actually designed to do, to perpetuate hierarchies of power and privilege. So the question for us is, how do we break systems that were designed to produce a different outcome and redesign them in ways that prioritize equity? And systems change is really, really hard work, right? So, Tima Kuhn wrote a great piece on white supremacy culture, and most of higher ed. I helped facilitate a workshop at Boise State talking about this piece of white supremacy culture. One of my colleagues at the time said, "This isn't white supremacy culture, this is higher ed." It's like, oh, yeah, kind of, right? And so every time I get an email that it says urgent, and I often get emails that say urgent in all caps, no, that perpetuates all of the systems that got us here, that don't serve students well, and that perpetuate white supremacy culture. So the question is, how do we break our decision-making structures to produce different outcomes, right? Systems produce what they were designed to produce. So how do we intentionally disrupt systems that produce inequities and create new systems? All of which is to say, every provost in America right now is dealing with how do we restructure our academic administrative structure so that we can save money. Everyone in America is doing that. And everyone that I've talked to, and I talked to a lot of them, are doing it the same way, which is the provost says, here's what I want to do, and they send it out and say, here's what we're going to do. And you'll never guess what happens. That don't work. It doesn't work, right? But it's urgent. So we got to do it today. And if we're going to do it today, then damn it, I'm going to do it myself. And so how do we disrupt those patterns is by taking a deep breath, right? Going slow so you can go fast. So I'm just pointing that out because we're in the process of reimagining our academic structure. Many people in this room have been involved in those conversations. I want to keep inviting you to come and participate. Because the only way this is going to work is if we actually pause and don't say, let's urgently respond to the crisis of the moment. Let's actually take into account the perspectives of other people who have a lot to offer and share and operate under a different set of processes and systems. Let's not just keep replicating the way we do things. So please don't send me an urgent email. Please don't. But to me, let's commit to adopting processes that encourage actual engagement and thoughtfulness and hearing each other. I will tell you, I'm at my worst when I'm responding to something urgently because I will go do it myself and then I'll regret it immediately. That I did it the wrong way, I perpetuated the wrong way, I perpetuate all the inequalities that produce the system that we've got. So how do we pause and break that pattern and intentionally do something else so we have a different system designed to produce a different outcome? All right, questions from the floor?
Thank you, panel.
You want to take questions?
Yes, I just wanted to appreciate the panel
Okay, thank
before
you.
we start doing.
Yeah, thank you, panelists.
Thank you.
Questions? So many. Every question has been answered.
So I'm gonna quiz you, what's a RACI? No. No, AI.
That's exactly the question that I had. Could we repeat the RACI
Yeah.
theory or approach?
So the RACI approach. So the RACI is pretty much a matrix. If you were to chat GPT this, so like if you were to put in, let's say, a certain process of yours. So for instance, let's say library loans. What's the role that oversees the library loan from start to finish? And for so you would chat GPT a racing chart for library loan, and then you would put in the roles that are involved in that process. So then it would give you a matrix of who's responsible, accountable, consulting, and then informed. So for informed would probably be Lauren. Who is responsible is probably the person who owns the initial process of that library loan. And so it walks you through that whole process. So, go ahead.
I can add, thank you. We find, so Jake just said, if you look at someone, just have whatever that process is, you have who's the R, you get all the names of people involved in library loans. This is out of my core competency, but I'll work with it. But basically in the library area, you say, okay, who's involved? That's who you first. And then you say, library loans, who is the R, who's the A, who's the C? We find most of the time, the R and the A's are very easy. The C and the I's are difficult. Who needs to buy in? That's the person who needs to be consulted. And also, who needs to be informed? Because I was like, I didn't know you did that. Well, you didn't tell me. Well, why didn't you? Because I need to leverage what you've done. So again, the R and the A's are fairly easy, but the C's and the I's are really difficult because that makes it really work much, much better.
So another example would be the laptop loaning that you guys have just beautifully adopted. So again, where does IT begin and where does the librarians begin? And so what's the relationship? That racing chart will outline the relationship between our partnership and collaborating on that laptop loan.
I was just going to add, we don't formally use this, although I've seen it many times and it's helpful, but it's not just helpful for the folks involved in the process, but it sets some expectations and frame around, do I get to make a decision about this or am I being consulted, right? It's really important to bring people into the room, but you don't want to bring people into the room, hear all their ideas and then be like, sorry, we're just going to do something else, because that doesn't help. And that's very true for students. They don't want to be asked, what's your opinion, and then feel like nothing. So it sets clarity up front about this is where your voice is going to be used in this process. You're not actually the final decision maker. But I just think that provides some really good expectations around how you're going to move forward with something.
Jada?
I appreciated what you said at the end about time, Corey, and everyone's emphasis on transparency and relationships. And time is one of the hardest things that I feel like I deal with. And so I'm wondering how you sort of set a culture for your areas and your staff about time management and like how much time they should be spending on work and sort of setting work-life balance if there is such a thing. And so how you set expectations around time with your staff.
I have to model it. Well, I took some things from Corey's signature about like, just because I'm sending this email at this time. So like, one, I took that, right? But then also, yeah, I have to really believe it. And so when they go on vacation, I can't be like, oh, but there's this thing, you know, or I'm even to the point I will try, you know, I'm not 100% good at this, but I will try to schedule emails to go out at a certain time. But I think for a lot of us who have signed up for the 24/7, it's just part of the nature of certain roles. We have to model that and understand that everybody is not at the same level of responsibility. And so it's really having a honest conversation with yourself, and like you have to model it and truly believe it, and not, and I have to self-check myself because like there's a sense of urgency that I see that maybe someone on the team doesn't see, but it's a Saturday, you know? So if it's not burning anything down, or it can wait till Monday. And so I have to model it. My thing is I have to model it.
Yeah, I would echo that. It's challenging, right, in student life, because we have a lot of folks who live on campus, who essentially work. Keep looking at Lila, our campus safety folks who work 24/7. They're the only staff on campus that is here 24/7, 365. So, and students are 24/7, right? So we can't say, we're not going to respond to this because it's 10 o'clock at night. There's a student emergency, we have to respond. So, but I think that means, as James said, when people can take time off, letting that be, they get their time off, and modeling it and sending messages. We just had a really interesting conversation in our leadership team about this, about work hours versus, and that's different for different people, and different people have different approaches to it. So just really attending, and for me, it's also as a manager, making sure you're really attending to the whole person, right? And everything they have going on in their life, and recognizing that and honoring that. Still expecting that they are fulfilling their job responsibilities, but just kind of seeing everything that they are and that they bring to the work, and finding ways to work with that and be flexible.
My answer would be focus with goals. Goals are very important. And also setting expectations. Thank you. Everyone has different work styles.
Yeah.
Some of my team members know that I'm a very, very early riser. But I make the mistake, I'll send an email, but I don't expect a response. So if someone get an email from me, unfortunately, about 5 in the morning, I do not expect a response whatsoever. But I have to be sensitive and be clear that I'm not expecting that response from you. I'm just getting it out there. But if we stay focused on the goals and reprioritize, because life is not perfect, and reset those goals so everyone is clear, because people want to be successful. They can't be successful if there's not a goal and they're being held accountable for it. And also, as a leader, how can you be flexible because things do occur?
Next question. You have time for one more. Elizabeth.
I can talk loud here. Well,
This is a spreadsheet question. So you mentioned if we've got institutional data.
Hang on, yeah, this is a question for Makika.
Okay. I have 10 years of institutional grant data in a spreadsheet and I own.
Yeah.
And so, and I need to leave this as a legacy that someone else can interpret. Is there, not just for me, but is there a workshop, you mentioned Adriana? Is there a workshop that you're going to be running, James, that's designed to help people who have that 10 years, 20 years of data and make it available to the institution? And so it's not just a one-off for me.
Help? No. No, so I think that is kind of that is kind of a help me because I think that would be a workshop specific because there is a lot of institutional knowledge in those Google Drives. I think that there might just need to be a larger initiative on let's check in if you, but that's not, it's also kind of like if you've been here for 10 years, that's like all types of other issues. But yeah, I don't know. I think that is a conversation because there's an institutional knowledge. There's institutional knowledge that tends to either get trapped or leave. But we might have to just come and visit you and see how we can go about doing that because data loss prevention is a real thing. So I appreciate the question, but I wish I could give you a more refined response, but I would say we would need to really work around that.
Retention policy.
Yeah.
Starting at the library. For sure. But we'll connect. I said let's look into that. Yeah, appreciate it.
Just super quick, tomorrow we have a sort of plenary session in the morning, one of which is about institutional memory and knowledge and how do we work with it. So stay tuned and come back.
All right, thank you to the panelists. Appreciate all your time today.